My name is Sangeet, and thank you to Rani for that introduction. I want to talk about some of the changes that we're seeing in the technology. One of the biggest things we are seeing is the internet is everywhere. It's on mobile phones, and it's not just on mobile phones, it's on game consoles like Xbox, Wii, PS3s, and children today are connected to this internet world like never before. And increasingly, it is a really important tool in education. And teachers as well have to get up to speed and understand how to use this technology wisely. In other words, how to use it to promote learning, education, and so on. But as a parent, you and I often see our children on their gadgets. We see them doing different things, and because a lot of us are not necessarily users of the same technology, perhaps you're not sitting and gaming. I don't know, maybe some of you are. I have a professor friend, NG Koo, who is with one of the senior people in Singapore doing research. And she's, I think, in her early 60s maybe, I'm not sure. Anyway, she and her husband are gamers. And I always talk about my Singapore gaming friend who is an expert on gaming. One of the points about that is sometimes as a parent, it is difficult to make that connection and to understand because we don't use the internet in the same way. But one of the things I'm going to say is you and I have lived quite a long time, judging by my white hairs, quite a long time. And so as a parent, you and I may know things about life and how sometimes people can trick you. Sometimes things don't go exactly as as you would like them to go. And you and I have life skills. And what we need to do is get enough digital skills about the online world ourselves so that we understand how that risk appears online. Now, there are lots of things that are risky, but to be honest, most children know how to navigate risk. But I think this is a lot of what I'm going to be talking about. Although I'm focusing on the negatives in a way, to some extent, I want you to know that personally and professionally, I think that the internet is one of the best things ever. And so it is really about how we manage risk. Rather than saying, no, it's too scary, I'm not going to let my child on there, it's actually saying to your child, what are you using? Who are your friends? Show me how to use Facebook. And that's where really you are expert because you have that bond with the child. And I think it's also the other point I'm going to make is it's important to start young. You know, if you've got a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old already, time to probably start talking about the internet. Is it a real place? Does it matter what I do on there? Are there laws on there? So I'm going to explore some of these ideas with you, but I thought I would start by showing you a little film clip, which is about 2.5 years old. But this film clip, I show it a lot in Wales where I live, because it still surprises people. And it's called Shift Happens, S-H-I-F-T, Shift Happens. And it's about the change in the internet that's happening. And some of the statistics on there will surprise you, but I won't spoil it for you. I'll let you have a look at it. Yes, some, yeah. There are some big numbers in there, especially the number of texts the average teenager sent. And I have 3 teenagers myself, and certainly from what I can see now, the packages in the UK and in Singapore, I think, have come down in price. And for very little money a month now, you can get a smartphone, unlimited text, unlimited internet, and maybe 200 minutes, something like that. And you can pay something like 30 Sing dollars in the UK and get a smartphone. So for young people, that is the way in which they connect to their friends and their peer networks. But for most of us, the idea of sending, that many texts a day is quite an alien idea. But that's because we're not them, and possibly in our time, we would come home from school, certainly the ladies amongst you, I can't speak for the men, pick up the phone and call your friends, and your mother would say, "Why are you on the phone? You've just come back from school." So, and it's a different revolution that's happening because this is the way that young people connect today. This is their world. There is a problem if that connection happens at the cost of everything else. So if you have a child who is gaming, say, 6 hours a day, if you've got a child who's doing that and not getting exercise and not doing the things that we expect children to have balance in their lives, then that potentially is a problem. And traditionally, when the VHS came out, those video, we used to play videotapes, certainly when my kids were young, and you'd put Barney on or you'd put something on. I don't know, some of you might have teenagers like my kids. And you'd play those, and they would be the babysitter sometimes because you are busy, right? The challenge for us is the internet is a two-way medium, and that is fantastic. It's an opportunity and a challenge. And your child could be interacting, developing relationships, and developing great friendships and keeping in touch with friends. But I think the key message is that it's not a passive media that comes to your home. It's an active media in that they can actually interact 2 ways. And so from our perspective, it's understanding what it means to them. And it's then saying, as a parent, how do I parent to make sure that they know how to maintain their privacy settings, that you know who their friends are, that they're not giving out information to people on the internet who shouldn't have that information, that they are aware of their footprint on the internet. Now, what I mean by footprint in the UK, one of the things they talk about is the negative footprint. That means, if a child goes out for a party, then the child has alcohol, and then a friend takes a photo of that child having alcohol, and before the child's even reached home, it's on Facebook, right? I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And then there's the same issue with teachers. I do a lot of work with teachers, with youth workers, where in your professional role previously, nobody knew what you did at the weekend, and it's nobody's business, really. Your private life is your private life. But unfortunately, social media is changing those boundaries between professional and personal, between public and private. So how do you and I equip our children so that they're savvy, so that they're thinking about what they do? And part of that is really the concept of cyber wellness in Singapore. The Singapore government, and for many years, Singapore is one of the leading countries actually in terms of internet safety education, because I used to live here, and I used to be PR here back in from 2000. I only went back to the UK in 2002, but for 10 years before that, Singapore was home. And I was really proud when I went back to the UK to know that Singapore had a name internationally because of an organization called PAGI, P-A-G-I. It doesn't exist anymore. It stood for the Parents Advisory Group for the Internet. And I was very active in it, and I was a volunteer trainer in it. And it was set up by the MDA back in the days of, I think it was about 2000 when they set it up. But basically, Singapore government has been very active, and the term used in Singapore is cyber wellness. The term used abroad is internet safety, digital citizenship, so they come under different words. But if you Google all these words, you'll come up with the same sort of content. So I thought I would start by giving you the definition. I will jump slides because there's a very good definition of cyber wellness, which I want to show you. And so we are on the same page when we're talking about it. And it refers to the positive well-being of internet users and a healthy cyber culture for the internet community. It involves an understanding of the risks of harmful online behavior and awareness of how to protect oneself and other internet users from such behavior. And the last point is really important: a recognition of the power of the internet to benefit oneself and the community. So this is not about not using the internet. It's really important that we look at that last sentence and say, actually, why are we not teaching our children to develop a positive footprint? so that when their future employer actually Googles them, they see all this wonderful stuff that your child has been doing. Do you see what I'm saying? We can come at it and say, we're very concerned, so don't participate, don't put negative stuff. But actually, if we think about it, people like myself and other educators have a lot of stuff online. So why is it okay for some to put stuff online and others not to? It's because sometimes we don't know. And I think what we need to be thinking about is changing our own thinking around how to enable our young people to use that space wisely for work, for education, but in a very practical way, understand that potentially, there are risks and how to manage those risks. So let's map a little bit some of the things that are changing on the internet. So one of the biggest changes we are seeing on the internet is the development of chat services, social network sites. But I've put that little point up there, the BlackBerry Messenger, because I just want to show you amongst young people, for example, who have BlackBerry phones, there's an app called the BlackBerry Messenger, which allows you to do group chat. That means, for example, if I email you and 3 other people, normally by email you can see who I send it to because you can see all the names, right? But if I was just to text you and text other people at the same time, normally you can't see who it's sent to. So I could text 4 people, but you don't know that I've texted 4. You only get your text. So there are new apps on mobile smartphones, apps as well as these services like BlackBerry Messenger, which allow group chat. And for a lot of young people, that's one of the ways in which they communicate. So part of our job is to understand today, what does the technology allow my young person to do? Because if you understood that, you would begin to understand the sort of relationships they might be developing, the sort of interactions they may be developing. So your challenge and my challenge is really one step at a time to embark on that journey. And one of the points I was discussing with colleagues here yesterday is the need for smartphones for parents. How many of you actually have smartphones? Can I have a show of hands? Oh, that's a fantastic number. So you're higher number than a lot of UK parents. But my point is really, if I was to say to you, okay, you've got to have driving lessons, let's say you don't drive, and there are 2 instructors. One instructor has driven already, been driving for 5 years, and the other instructor knows everything about road safety and how to drive the car but has never driven it. Which instructor would you go for? The one who drives, right? So it's a no-brainer really that in the same way with digital technology, it is about us embracing the technology ourselves. And the first 24 hours will be painful because you don't know necessarily what is going on. It took me a while to get used to my smartphone. Then you develop the confidence. One parent said to me, it took her 3 months. But at some, it's getting on that journey because by using the same technology that young people are using, you begin to understand the things that the technology allows you to do. And the smartphone is not a young person's gadget. I know people in their 60s and 70s with smartphones who are using it to maximum benefit. So there are these stereotypes that the media shows you all these young people with smartphones. I would say to you that's not the case. And if you can, explore those options because you will learn quite a lot just from having exposure to those same services. And it's a fantastic talking point with your children, getting them to show you how to use it as well. Okay, so there are more ways to chat and stay connected, and gaming is a big feature as well. And I know certainly in Singapore that's one of the key things. But in a way, all these services are causing us to maybe develop new social norms. So where you and I may have thought of meeting friends in real life as the most sociable thing, for a lot of young people, maybe the group text is very popular. Perhaps chatting on Facebook is very popular. Similarly, there are also virtual worlds that children chat in, and that's slightly different to Messenger. In those days, we used to talk about MSN Messenger. Now we talk about Facebook chat. We talk about Windows Live Messenger. So that's, everything that a child uses, by the way, has privacy settings. So one of the points I'm going to say is, as a parent, have you checked the privacy settings of all these apps? And that's a very practical thing you could do. Right down from the Wii game console, right down to the Xbox and PS3, every gadget, every application has privacy settings. And a lot of them have parental controls, including the Xbox. But as a parent, you and I may not know all about those things, or sometimes it's easier to pass it to your child to set up. And if you've got a child like my child, he'll say, Mom, I'll make an email address for you, then I'll get your permission, but I'll do it. But it depends on your relationship with your child. right? If you know that your child is able to talk to you, then actually there is much less of a problem. The problem happens when the child feels that the parent may not support them, may not understand. I work directly with a lot of children, and the number one reason they say they may not tell their parents is because their parents will take away their mobile phone, the parents will ban them from the internet. So if they're having negative experiences, the question to ask is, have you created a culture in your home? Have you got a relationship that allows them to come and talk to you if things go wrong?